Right. Hello and welcome again to another interview for the series In Conversation With. And now today we have a great guest lined up for you. Mario Zambas, who is a lecturer at UCFB, but has been an F1 IT director in the past. Hello, Mario. Thank you for joining me today. How have you been?
Pretty good. Obviously, like everybody else, been in lockdown, which is interesting when you're teaching. So for the last eight weeks of term, we had to teach online.
So tell the viewers a little about yourself and how have you sort of got from F1 or the sports industry to teaching.
Well, I won't go into the whole journey because I started life out as I did a business studies degree way back. In life before the internet, which you like guys won't know anything about. You had to go into libraries and get books out and stuff like that. But I started out life as an accountant, worked in manufacturing in fast-moving consumer goods, multinationals, mainly American oil and gas and chemical companies. And then 1999 was a sort of pivotal year for me because I was made redundant from a company and I was kicking around looking for a job, and somebody contacted me and said, one of my clients is looking for an IT manager. I went to this venue in Carrow Road, and it happened to be Norwich City.
Really?
So they took me on as IT manager. First job was Millennium 2000,
wow.
Bug fix, which in the end didn't manifest itself as much as everyone had feared. So I spent 6 fantastic years at Norwich City working with Delia Smith. And did you know Neil Doncaster, who was the CEO there?
Yeah.
I worked with him for 7 years, so I know him really well. He's now the CEO of the Scottish Premier League.
Wow.
I understand what the business needs in terms of technology systems. So whenever I look at the requirement, it's always looking at what the business requirement is, and then you bring in the clever techie guys to actually deliver it. So, but I can bridge the gap between the technology, the techie speak, if you like, and what the business needs. And I think, and that's what something we'll touch on about when you go into, what makes a good event manager. We'll go into some of the detail of why it's important to understand all aspects of the business. So that's, I guess, you can't lose yourself in the technology, even today, where it's moving on a sort of such a rapid pace. You still have to work. You still have to step back and think what is good for the business, what is good for the customer, and make sure that the technology fits it rather than the other way around, but rather than be led by it, because you'll spend a lot of money and waste a lot of money if you just follow the dream.
Yeah.
One of the things which we're seeing with COVID-19 is that technology will play, if it can, an even bigger role because, with social distancing, with making sure that you reduce the number of surfaces people touch and so on, we'll be relying a lot more on technology to help us manage those venues and those events going forward.
That's right. And then you went to Carrow Road for Norwich for 7 years, and then how did you get into F1 from then? Or was there like a stopping gap or a different job in between?
No, well, we became the de facto CRM business system. We became the blue ribbon kind of implementation. Everyone from around the world came to Norwich City to see how we'd developed our CRM strategy. We took, I think it was 5,000 season ticket holders up to 18,500 season ticket holders through a CRM strategy by sort of, getting to know the customer. If you're looking for a CRM database, Norwich City have got it from 1999. It's probably bigger than anybody else's in terms of time. So everybody else, I'm not sure about the Americans because NFL and they were quite ahead of the game there, but certainly in Europe and in the UK, we were sort of up there. In terms of leading the charge. So I was doing a keynote speech on sweating. I called it sweating the asset. How you make an asset work for 365 days a year at the Emirates Stadium in the new Arsenal Stadium as it was then. And these 2 guys came up to me afterwards and offered me a job to come out to Dubai to head up Dubai Sports City. Now this isn't F1 yet. This is interim. So me and my wife decided, actually, offer can't refuse. Went out to Dubai. 2006. So I was there. We were building a multifaceted sports city with cricket stadium, which they use for internationals, golf course, only else golf course, mixed residential and office apartments for people to live and work there. golf course villas, cricket academies, head of the ICC, the head of cricket's ICC. 2008 came and blew the bubble apart, and the financial crash really affected, because Dubai Sports City wasn't built by the big families. It was built by 120 different developers. Most of them went bust.
Really?
So the project died for a period of time. We were thinking about, okay, what we're going to do now. I'll come back to the UK, and then in the time we were deciding to come back, I got a phone call from a headhunter saying, we got a client in Abu Dhabi who's interested in talking to you. Off I trotted, and it was Abu Dhabi Motorsports Management who run and own the Yas Marina circuit. And they were just starting to build it, and they asked me if I'd come in and build an IT technology platform and team to run the first Grand Prix on the 1st of November 2009.
That's
so my
crazy.
job. So that was how I got into Formula One. It was being in the right place at the right time, but having some relevant experience as well. Done, but certainly the jobs after that were a result of me running the being IT director at the Yas Marina circuit. You once you get yourself up to a level, and from some of the other lecturers that you've dealt with, like Lee, for example, Lee Armstrong, once you start working on one Olympic Games or World Cup or games, you're on the kind of carousel, aren't you?
Definitely.
And I think what some of the advice we give people like yourself, even in this difficult time that we have at the moment with COVID-19, is keep your network, keep communicating, keep putting yourself out there. Share articles, read articles, research, link up with people, do this kind of thing, and hopefully through this, you never know what might happen. So it's all of those things.
How crucial is networking, and if some of the viewers don't know how to network, is there any advice you would sort of tell them, or sort of how to do it as such?
I think we've got some great tools with social media and some of the professional networks. I'd always tell you guys and students I teach, LinkedIn is a bit like it's like a virtual business card platform, which in the old days was just you give your business card out. Now you just put your profile on LinkedIn, and then people find you as long as you find the right people. So I do think that is a way. Networking is just communicate. Be yourself. Don't bullshit people. Don't tell them things that you're not and you haven't done, because you'll be found out. Just be yourself. People, and we all have the ideal job is out there, but it's not necessarily the first job you get, Ollie, because I started out as a junior accountant way back when I had no idea that I'd turn out as as an F1 IT director. But funnily enough, when I was working in one of my initial companies, it was a microporous plastics company in Kings Lynn. That was where I did the switch from being purely accounting to being accounting and IT. I took on a young lady called Michaela Watts as a junior accountant. She's now the financial controller for Mercedes Formula One team.
Oh wow!
So we had this little company in Kings Lynn that had two people sort of reasonably high profile jobs within Formula One. So
you mentioned you worked for F1 in Dubai, but you moved to America, right?
Of course, I delivered the first Grand Prix at Yas, which is in 1st of November 2009. I'll always remember that date. And I delivered 3 Grand Prix. I was there for 3 years. And the Emiratis are the people who have come from the United Arab Emirates, which is a group of 7 countries, including Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It was obvious that they wanted us as expats to come there, give their experience, get them on the road, basically get them up and running, but then hand over to them. So it was effectively a 3-year contract. So I ran 3 Grand Prix. Our jobs in all the different departments, commercial, marketing, sporting, was to basically empower the local professionals to run their own race effectively. So 2011 came. That was my last Grand Prix, and I took a bit of time out because it had been a fairly crazy, hectic time at Yas. And I got contacted by Deloitte's management consultants in Austin, Texas, saying they had client who was very interested in talking to me about me helping them out with their project, which I knew they were building a Formula One circuit in Austin, Texas. So Deloitte came over to Dubai. We had a chat, and then they said, "Could you come next week?" And I said, well, "Why not?" Family home was still in Dubai. We hadn't relocated, so we stayed. My wife stayed in Dubai. I shot across the Atlantic to Austin, and spent a year there getting them ready for their first Grand Prix in 2012, October 2012. As a consultant, so I helped them with financial systems, with event planning systems, and then the F1 operations. So I was the kind of liaison between F1 and the FIA and COTA, which is a circuit of the Americas, which is the Austin circuit. So that's what I did there for a year. That was great fun. And then that finished, and went back to Dubai. And then I got a phone call from Eccleston, who was then in charge of Formula One, and he said, "Would you take a team out to Sochi in Russia for the 2014 Grand Prix to get them ready?" And so I took a team of people out, a guy called Richard Cregan, who I'd worked with at Yaz, and various other folks, and we set them up for their first Grand Prix in 2014. So that's how I did the 3, if you like, Formula One venues.
But going from that, what made you to go to teaching then?
Well, it was a complete accident. In 2014, after Sochi, we decided that was it. I wasn't going to do any more crazy projects. So we came back to the UK. We decided to come home and retire. So bought a house, completely smashed it down, rebuilt it. Did one of those kind of dream home type exercises.
Oh, like grand designs.
Like grand designs, yeah. Completely took a house, doubled the size of the house, and put lots of glass and steel in it. So it's quite nice. And then I did a master's. My wife had done her master's while she was in Dubai, and then sat back and thought, what am I going to do now? I'm retired, but what am I going to do now? And I saw this chief marketing officer on LinkedIn, Sharona Friedman, and I just pinged her at LinkedIn just to sort of touch base, and she looked at my profile and said, "I think you need to come in and talk to us."
Really?
I thought, okay. So I made an appointment, came in to see Dr. Wild, who heads the postgrad program, and Arlo, who heads the undergrad school. And they offered me a job. Would you come in and teach stadium and event management?
Moving on. So how useful is it for event managers to have project management skills?
Well, I've said that to every class I've ever taught, because I am a qualified project manager. That's what my job has been. Okay, yeah, you can call it IT director, but at the end of the day, you're a project manager. You're managing different components, moving parts, different people, different suppliers, different technologies. So if you want to succeed in any complex environment, you have to have an element of project management skill, whether it's the discipline of, this is how you run a project, and if everyone knows the playbook, you all can, you're all being coordinated and kind of guided that way. Projects are great when there's no obstacles, when everything just runs smoothly. What finds you out is when things go wrong, and it's whether you've got a backup plan. And in IT, you have to have 3 backup plans, because technology has a habit of doing things when you don't want it to do things right at the worst moment. So you have to have backup plans. And that goes with running an event when you've.
But yeah, what in your eyes, what makes someone like an excellent event manager? I know
Well, you touched on it. It's been a good communicator. And what that means is making sure that everyone understands what's happening at any point in time. So it might not be just all verbal, face to face. There could be, you could be producing reports, and you could be producing lists of what people are doing, but managing those lists. But you touched on it when you started off the discussion about being a good communicator. That is it. It's being a good communicator, which means good and bad news and information. Communication is all about managing expectations. It's not all about you did well, brilliant, fantastic. It's also, this hasn't worked, what we're going to do. Formula One is a great example of that. Doesn't matter how good a driver you are, how good your car is. You look at all of the teams. You look at Mercedes, who smashed it at the weekend. The amount of analysis they did, because by their standards, they failed last weekend in the first Grand Prix back. But they analysed thousands of hours worth of data to make the improvements, and sometimes when you're managing an event, it's the communication, but it's also learning about how previous events have done, how previous people have worked. And it's sometimes not necessarily big changes and big improvements. It's, if it's 10 people making little improvements, that could be a big improvement at the end of the day. So it's always looking at your own experience and your own performance, and, if you like, never being 100% happy with it, always looking at where you can improve. So constant improvement. Yeah.
It's all right.
That's right.
Yeah,
constant improvement is part of project management. It's you go from one event to the next. I had a great time working at Norwich for 7 years, and every Monday morning after a Saturday game, we had a debrief. We all sat down, all of the operational team, IT, safety, security, FM, sporting, the club secretary, Neil Doncaster, would chair the meeting, and we would sit down and debrief on what happened on the Saturday. And it wouldn't be just, oh yeah, everything went fine. It would be, okay, why did that queue not work? Because maybe the toilets were, and it was going back and over again over what can be improved, and never being satisfied. When you've got lots of people, you're always going to have issues.
Definitely,
it's how you cope with them and how you fix it for the next time if something did go wrong. Yeah. For me, I mean, I've worked with some fantastic event managers in the different circuits at Norwich City as well. Jackie Cullen, who was the wife of Andy Cullen, who was the head of marketing there, she was fabulous, and we had a great one at all three of the Formula One circuits, and they're good because they understand how the event delivery team fits in with all the other operational teams. So your best friends are your IT people and your FM people and the catering people, because you all work together. It's not, the IT people, although they worked under me and I was their direct boss, or my managers were their direct bosses, they were implanted into the event team. So when they were setting up for a particular event, whether it was a Formula One race or a big conference going on in the media centre, my IT boys would be with them, working with them. They were part of the team. If you had come in as an outsider, you wouldn't have known they were IT, except they might have been messing around with the AV system or or setting up, video screens and stuff. But they looked just like the event boys and girls, because that's what they were, part of the event team. If you're delivering an event to 250,000 people, you need a lot of people to make that work.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
And they've got to work together, and they've got to be coordinated.
Definitely. If you think back to your challenging events or challenging moments during your career, what's the one that stands out for you?
There were quite a lot of challenging moments, because I've been involved in, 200, 300 events, probably, some massive ones, and some, well, they're all big ones because they all involve people. And I think the smallest event I ever was involved with was probably about 10,000 people involved, but the biggest one was the 250,000. I think it's just, I remember the first Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. It was the first day-night race, so we went from dusk to nighttime. So obviously lighting was a key factor to making sure that. So unlike Singapore, which is run at night, we were running across, going from day to night. I got a phone call before the first race about, I think our race started at 5:30, and about 3:30, my electronics manager rang me up and said, "We got a problem with the gantry boards." Now, over a Formula One start, where the lights come up? Yeah. That's the gantry, right? And above it was the Etihad Airways gantry, which was lit up because they'd paid a lot of money to sponsor that event. And he said that the gantry was failing over the start-finish line, which would have been quite embarrassing if the Etihad Airways logo hadn't been up there shining at the start of the first Grand Prix. So I sent him down to find out, because he was already sending a bunch of people. He said the air conditioning system has failed, and what basically was happening was the LED screen, effectively what was on the gantry, was going into auto shutdown. It does that if it knows it's not being cooled, it shuts down to protect itself from burning out.
Oh, wow.
So we and I said, well, why is that happening? And we had a look, and where they hadn't buried the air conditioning line up to the gantry well enough, and it had been broken during the building works, and it fractured, so it was losing coolant, and we couldn't keep topping it up because we didn't have enough coolant, and it wouldn't have kept it up. So I said, look, so I rang Charlie Whiting up, who was the race director, and I said, we got an issue with the start finish gantry. Can we get on track? Because at that point, nobody else is allowed on track other than the safety car and the cars and the mechanics and everyone getting the cars set up for the race. He said, look, I'll give you an hour. You have to be off the track in an hour, because we had to get a cherry picker and all sorts of things on the track. So I said, have we got any coolant on site? So I went back to Thomas. I said, no, we haven't. I said, right, okay, then we need to get some coolant. So we got hold of the air conditioning company the company who built the gantry. And so they were on their way from downtown Abu Dhabi. And of course, none of them had accreditation. And these mega events, we had 52 heads of state there. We had the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi there. We had everybody who was important in the Middle East and elsewhere coming to the race. So this is a long story, but it's quite an interesting one. It just shows how important it is to know everybody in the organisation. Now, wind back a little bit. I was on the Executive Affairs Committee to get Abu Dhabi activated for the Grand Prix. So I knew Khaldun Al Mubarak very well, chairman of the City Group, because he was my boss basically. And I knew all of the army and the heads of various police forces and that, because we met once a month just to during the year to plan for the event. So I knew the brigadier who was head of the army, and I rang him up and said, look, we've got to get this van in without accreditation because we need to get this fixed. And he said, leave it with me. Anyway, we got to the gate, and he hadn't communicated to the gate that they were coming. So I'd gone to the gate myself waiting for them. And I said, look, Brigadier Obaid has given me personal permission to get this van onto the track. And they believed me. So I got on the van. They had the dogs come in, all of the sniffer dogs come in to sniff to make sure we weren't bringing a bomb in. So all of this was going on an hour and a half out from the race, So anyway, got the van in, fixed the problem. They taped it up, and it got us through the race. But that would have been career limiting, let's say, if that hadn't worked for us and for me. But it just shows you that, even the testing we did, we'd run that board solidly. We'd soak tested it for a week before the race, and it decided to go wrong an hour and a half, 2 hours before the race started.
Crazy. Career. Well, what do you consider a career highlight of yours?
It was IT director at the Yas Marina circuit.
Really?
I mean, that was the pinnacle of my career. It was an unbelievable experience. I don't want to belittle some of the other stuff that I've done and people I've worked with. Norwich City was a fabulous place to work. Lovely company, lovely club. Dealey was fabulous to work with. And everyone there, Neil Doncaster, Andy Cullen, great guy. Sean O'Hara was the head of finance. They were all great guys, and I thoroughly enjoyed working there. But from an excitement perspective, I don't think I could have. That was my career highlight, was working at Yaz's for the 3 years there, having the experience, having the responsibility. When you're given a $500 million budget to build an IT technology, that's a serious amount of money.
Yeah, that is, yeah. But obviously, at the moment, we have lockdown, and it's a bit of a difficult time for people who like me graduating and who's trying to sort of enter the event world. But have you got any advice for them at all?
I would say we know that the event industry has taken a bit of a knock, like everywhere else, in terms of recovering. But I think in terms of youngsters like yourself coming out of college, looking for jobs, keep plugging, keep on link, keep networking. That really is important. Keep contacting people, because at some point jobs will start to appear. But as happened to me for probably the best part of 20 years, I never sent a CV out. I was always contacted by people because of back because of what I'd done. And it's keeping in touch with the people that might be able to help you. And don't think that your first job is your dream job. You know, look at stepping stones. You might need a job outside of the event industry, but like as I've told all my students, make sure you get yourself other qualifications. So never stop learning. It might be a language. If you're looking at somewhere abroad, it might be project management qualifications, so that you can take that to any industry. The reason I've moved around is because IT is something you can take from one element to another. Event management, you could be working for a true sports venue like a Wembley Stadium, or you could be working for an event delivery company like a 360, you know, where Joe works. You know, he went to work there and then he's now gone to Formula E. So you might go and work for an event management team within a massive company like Samsung or Siemens, or, you know, someone like that. So if you wanted to stay in the event industry, and then you're building that experience, and you can take that anywhere, you know, whether you're delivering it at a Formula One circuit venue or a stadium or the conference or the O2 arena, it doesn't matter. It's all about project management. It's all about planning. It's all about communications. Just keep learning, keep trying. Don't give up. There isn't a magic formula, unfortunately. I'd give it to you if I knew it. It's just putting yourself out there, being in the right place at the right time, and it'll happen. But don't expect your first job to be the one you'll be in for the rest of your life. It won't be. It might even be that you start up your own little business just to sort of keep things going with some of your ex-colleagues. Why not? You've got to make yourself marketable. So there's your personality and all of that, which will come through. You know, you can work on things like presentations and public speaking and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've been doing it for years and I've still not cracked it. So, you know, there's never a time when you're an expert. But, you know, make sure that you brush up on your project management skills, communication skills. Why not learn another language? Where's the world going? You know, do you need Spanish, Chinese? There's lots of languages which maybe just having a basic knowledge of is important. If you're interested in a part of the world, make sure you beef up on the culture.